right. So again, I want to thank you all for being here this morning to learn more about our residential programs here at the University of Maryland. My name is Dan Harefield. I am the coordinator for recruitment and outreach programs with our Department of Resident Life. First of all, I want to congratulate all of our students out here in the audience and the parents of those students for getting admitted to the University of Maryland. I myself am an alum of Maryland. I graduated back in 2005. I was a psych major. I participated in the College Park Scholars Program, and I was an RA on campus for 3 years. So certainly I have a commitment and a love of the University of Maryland. I'm happy to be here chatting with you all this morning, trying to help answer your questions as we go. So I do have a brief presentation that I want to start with that might answer a number of these questions that are in the chat, but I'm going to go through that first, and then it should be about 10 minutes or so. And then I'm going to try to navigate all these wonderful questions that are here in the chat section. So bear with me. We hit our 300-person limit here in this session, so absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So let me go ahead and switch to our PowerPoint. Okay. All right. So just go ahead and there we go. Move that to the side. All right. So first of all, again, thank you for being here. I want to make sure that I get to all of your questions and help to answer all the things that you want to know about living on campus. And I will get to that just shortly. But first of all, here we go. In order to apply to live on campus, you're going to want to go to reslife.umd.edu/apply. When you were admitted to the university, you were able to immediately apply for on-campus housing. There we go. Get the controls out of there for me for just a moment there. All right, so you were able to apply immediately when you got admitted to the university. There's no deposit for applying to live on campus, but certainly it's a good idea to go ahead and get that housing and dining agreement submitted, get that information in. If you're still trying to decide where you're going to go for going to college, that's okay. If you choose not to come to Maryland, then the housing application will get canceled as well. But if you choose to come here and you've already submitted your application, you've already got your place in line to get assigned to live on campus. So first, I just want to mention that. And something I'm going to say a couple different times, probably both here in the presentation, as well as in answering questions. May 1st is our priority deadline to submit your on-campus housing and dining agreement. So keep that in mind. You want to get that done before May 1st. There are certainly 5 key things that we're excited about that we provide for our students to really impact their Maryland residential experience. We help them make connections and friendships through the programs and services that we provide in the residence halls. Academics is certainly infused into the work that we do with our support of the environment, of having quiet study spaces, quiet hours in the evenings, living learning programs that help support co-curricular learning, things like the College Park Scholars and the University Honors, Caroline, Gemstone, Writers House, Language House, Civicus, all of those various experiences, as well as the Math Success Program, where we have math coaches employed with our department to help students through a lot of the common and challenging math courses here at Maryland. Living on campus means that all of the university has to offer is right outside of your residence hall. You're living within the community with all of the resources and experiences that you want to be engaged in throughout your college career, as well as we work off a differential housing rate structure. So you pay for the type of accommodations you're in. If you're in a traditional style building, traditional style room, a double, triple, or quad, you're going to pay less than a student who's going to be living in a suite or apartment. So just kind of the little bit of a cost piece there. Certainly we're competitive with our off-campus housing options that are available. We provide 24/7 support for our students. We have staff that work in the office during the day, and both student and professional staff that live in the buildings that provide on-call assistance in the evenings. And beyond that, we have our service desks that operate 24 hours a day, and we have the facilities staff that are available to manage any sort of facilities issues in the buildings. And then finally, for student development, living and learning and growing together happens both inside and outside of the classroom. So for us, it's really about leadership opportunities and events and programs that we host throughout the year, opportunities for students to really connect and learn and grow together. Okay. So for specific information about housing, again, that May 1st deadline is important. You do not have to have confirmed that you're coming to Maryland in order to submit that housing and dining agreement. So go ahead and do that as soon as you can. That's the first big thing. When you go through that housing and dining agreement, you're going to have several categories of things that you're going to answer, a series of questions. Things like roommate preferences, not specifically who you want as a roommate, but roommate preferences. You'll highlight which dining plan you want to go into. You'll have an option to put in any sort of special needs or preferences that you have in terms of your housing. All of those types of things. The one thing you won't be able to do is identify a specific room or building. We'll take as much feedback as we can in terms of the type of living experience that you want, and certainly work to meet your needs and preferences that get identified through the application, verified with any sort of documentation that helps support those needs. But you won't have the ability to pick a specific room or building. With that, living learning programs have predetermined housing locations. So for example, the Scholars Program is in the Cambridge community. The Honors Program is in Hagerstown Hall, specifically University Honors. Flexus and Vertus are engineering-based living learning programs that are over in Easton. So each program is going to have its predetermined area. Students who are in living learning programs still need to submit their housing agreement, but at the same time, you're going to have a predetermined building or floors within a building where your housing is going to be identified. On the roommate side, this is one of the biggest questions that we get anytime we do any sort of Q&A or presentation sessions about housing. So with roommates, you have the opportunity to identify a potential roommate. And that's something that we open the process on May 15th. So it'll be after that May 1st deadline. You'll get notification that we're opening up the roommate process. You'll log back into our housing portal, which is called StarRes, which you can do from the main website. And then from there, you'll be able to identify a specific person if that's the route that you want to go. You'll need to make sure that you're in the same living learning program situation that they are. So if you're in a Carillon community, or you're in College Park Scholars, or you're in University Honors, if you're in Civicus, you're going to need to make sure that the person that you're requesting as your roommate is also in that same program in order for that roommate request to be honored with our assignments office. If you're in different programs, you've got two different pre-designated housing locations, and if you're in a program and maybe they're not in any of the programs, then there's still a challenge that the individual living learning program has those spaces already pre-registered for themselves in that location. So Scholars has the floors throughout the Cambridge community for their individual 12 programs. So we can't have a student taking up a space for another student in that program would need to be placed into. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're trying to potentially identify a roommate that you want to live with. Beyond that, if you don't have somebody identified ahead of time, we'll have a search tool that'll be available. You'll be able to use some of the questions that we provide through the application, as well as some additional information to try to search for somebody who would be a good match for you. And then you'll go through that same process of you'll insert that person's information into your request, we'll confirm it, and then our assignments office will be able to use that when we get to placement. The other option is just to kind of leave it open, let our assignments office use the basic information that we ask on the on-campus housing and dining agreement as far as roommate interests and take it from there. Certainly that's the process I went through when I went to Maryland, and my roommate and I actually developed a really good relationship living together over the course of the year. One other thing to highlight in terms of assignments information is that we've got mixed gender and gender inclusive housing available for students. It's a little bit more flexible housing for what students might be looking for in terms of their experience in the residence halls. Mixed gender housing essentially in traditional residence halls is where the bedroom is going to be single gender, the bathrooms are single gender, but alternating down the hallway, the rooms might go one male, one female, one male, one female. Most of our traditional housing is going to be the entire wing or the entire floor will be the same gender, but in mixed gender, it has the opportunity to kind of switch back and forth by room. For gender inclusive housing, this is going to be in our suites and apartments. And in those spaces, if all the students have agreed to it and submitted their interest in gender inclusive housing, they'll be able to rearrange who lives in which room however they choose. And that gets worked out with our assignments office. As you can see there on the slide as well, there's a little graph that indicates most of the rooms that we have throughout our buildings are doubles. So that would be one roommate. We do have some triples and quads. Those are mostly in traditional style buildings. And then with singles, I do want to highlight, it is highly unlikely for our first year students to end up in singles because those usually get taken up by a combination of our resident assistant staff and the students who are returning to housing for their second year. So a lot of that gets picked up even before we get to the process of placing our first year students. So I would kind of expect that you would have at least one roommate, but probably be living in a double. Our program is focused on first and second year students. So we've seen the greatest impact of living on campus for our students in their first 2 years of college. So our program is designed for that. For rising juniors and seniors, you do have priority access to get into our capstone management properties, which are the South Campus Commons and courtyards at Maryland communities on either end of campus. Both of those are apartment style communities. And we actually are running that process right now, or I think maybe even just finish that process of having students sign up for that housing this week. So rising juniors and seniors getting into those apartment style communities. And we have an off-campus housing services office that's part of our department. They help to manage a database for students looking at options off campus, both the private companies, all the apartment buildings in the College Park area, as well as private landlords. Kind of a couple final quick pieces here. So if you haven't logged in before, your directory ID and password, which you received when you were admitted to the university, is how you're going to log into our on-campus housing dining system to submit your agreement. So just remember that. There is a $25 application fee. That's something that doesn't get assessed until after you've both confirmed your admission to the university. So you've said, not only am I admitted to Maryland, but I'm going to say yes, I'm going to go to Maryland for the fall, and that we've received your agreement, that you submitted your on-campus housing and dining agreement. So after that, a $25 fee will be assessed to your student account. And then beyond that, the date that you submit your agreement is one of the factors that goes into how we manage placement when we get to the end of June and into July. So the earlier you submit your agreement, the closer to the front of the line you go. Certainly it's not the only factor. We look at the date order that an agreement is received. We look at any sort of special needs and accommodations. We look at living learning programs. So there are a number of different factors that come into play to manage how we do placement. So you can get your application in, go to reslife.umd.edu/apply to submit that today. So that's the end of the presentation piece. So I'm going to drop out of the PowerPoint. And I've seen the numbers ticking up in terms of questions. You'll have to forgive me. I've got a lot of questions here to go through. I'm going to try to do my best, see if I can get through everything. All right, so let's see. Meeting, how often is it realistic to meet with counselors in letters and sciences? So I don't know the direct answer to that question as far as how often. Yeah, we got a lot of questions in this chat. So I don't have a number of times per semester that you can go get advising from the office, but certainly you can set up meetings with the College of Letters and Sciences. If the College of Letters and Sciences essentially is kind of like undecided, or you're transitioning into another major at the university. So once a week, I'm not sure. I think that's something that you have to contact the college specifically for. So I started talking about this a little bit before the official session started. Living learning programs come in two different categories. Either they're application-based or they're invitation-based. So the invitation-based programs have already submitted or sent out their invitations. Some of those include the Caroline Communities, College Park Scholars, the Honors College. So For those programs in particular, they've already submitted and sent out their invitations. For some of our programs, they're application-based. And you can see the full list of our programs. We have 18 living learning programs here at the University of Maryland. So if you go to our website, we've got links to all 18 programs, and you can contact their staff specifically to find out which ones may still be accepting applications. There's a question here, and I think it's probably repeated as I go through the questions, that can a student in a Carillon community live with students who are not in any living learning programs? So the kind of simple answer would be to say technically no. I mean, it's hit and miss. Some programs have a little bit more leniency than others, and then it also depends on the number of students who are admitted to that particular program, and do they fill the entire space of the program. So we have to prioritize first that students who are in that living learning program, such as Carillon, honors, scholars, and so on, that we're filling the spaces first with students who are in that particular program before we consider looking at non-living learning program students filling those spaces. So roommate requests that come in where you've got different living learning program situations will be significantly more difficult to actually approve. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about your housing option. Let's see. So online orientation. So if you didn't know, we have officially made the decision to move our orientation program for the summer online. Obviously, the situation we're in is challenging, and we're trying to make adjustments as we go. As far as what you need to have readily available, if you've applied for the university, you've been admitted, things like transcripts and classes taken, AP information, all of that technically should already be in our university system. So really what's going to be important to have available is start thinking about you can look online, you can see our course catalog. If you go to Testudo, testudo.umd.edu. If you go to Testudo, you can see our scheduled classes, the course catalog, what options might be available, both for a major, if you're declaring a major, or just general classes. Take a look at that, see what you might be interested in. The orientation office is also going to send additional information to you in preparation for their sessions. Because they're moving online this summer, some elements of orientation are going to be available from start to finish for the summer. And as you register for orientation, you'll still technically be signing up for specific blocks of days that you'll participate, and that's really to help with class scheduling and whatnot. So just know that you'll get more information from orientation to prepare for that session. In terms of rooming with people in different scholars programs, again, that's going to be a bit of hit and miss because we want to make sure that, for example, all the students who are living in the art scholars program are living together in close proximity. If you're all in the life sciences program, science discovery in the universe, business society and the economy, whichever program you're in, we want to make sure that those students are all living together so that that helps with the building of community. So I would plan to prepare for having a roommate who's also in that same program. Let's see. So yeah, so that kind of gets to the question. If, you can also contact our assignments office if you want more information, contact the Living Learning Program if you need a little bit of update there as well. Generally, I would say you should plan to try to live with somebody who's also in your same program. Part of that is community building. Part of that is making sure that the students have the opportunity to live together if you're all participating in the same Living Learning Program. Let's see. The question about how are different halls assigned to students. You're not allowed to pick your specific building. You will be able to put in preferences. Living Learning programs, as I've mentioned, have predetermined housing locations. So if you're in one of our LLPs, you'll have a particular building or set of floors within a building that you'll be pre-designated to go to. And then from there, you'll be able to use the roommate process to potentially find someone who matches in that program to be a roommate, or kind of leave that up to our assignments office to match you with somebody from that program. So, so certainly just kind of know that. So Freshman Connection, I see a question about that. Freshman Connection is one of our programs where students have a little bit of a different schedule going into the fall semester in the way that you're taking classes and kind of transitioning into the college environment, and then are truly full-time traditional college program starting in the spring. We do have housing in our residence halls for Freshman Connection students. We do our best to try to match up Freshman Connection with other Freshman Connection students. Again, that concept of building community and connection between students in similar academic experiences, or in this case, in this case specifically academic experiences. So, so just want to mention that as well. Freshman Connection students do get to live together. There isn't a one specific hall where all Freshman Connection is. It's not the same type of setup as our living learning programs, but we do have kind of clusters of students who will be in Freshman Connection together, living together. There is a comment in here about somebody's daughter being able to room with somebody from a different scholars program. So she was in one scholars program and her roommate was in a different scholars program. That is possible. Really, the big thing does come down to making sure that students in individual programs and sub-programs have the opportunity to live together. If they're in the same building, there might be some more flexibility there. Certainly, you can still put that request in. Just know that if it is declined, it might be because of an occupancy-related issue, ensuring that students who are in the same program get to live together. Let's see. Another question related to orientation about taking the math placement exam. Certainly, that's something that you'll have to work with the orientation on. I don't know exactly how they're going to manage that going into this summer. Typically, that's something that you would do as part of the orientation experience. Being online, I believe there might be an online module or something along those lines that they're adjusting to do instead, which would be accessible potentially before your official session dates. So just kind of be on the lookout for more information specifically from orientation about that. Kind of similar in terms of living learning programs, somebody accepted into Flexus, a friend in BioFire. Both programs take place in Easton. Can you share the same room? You can put that request in. I can't guarantee anything as far as saying that yes, you will definitely room together just because your programs are in the same building. But just be aware that we have pre-designated locations, sets of floors within buildings for individual programs. You can put that request in and see how it goes, but I just don't want to guarantee anything that will automatically be approved just because both programs are in the same building. Let's see. Question about filled out the self-nomination form for scholars, but haven't heard anything back. So I would say, regardless of what's going on for scholars for you, certainly make sure that, make sure that you go ahead and sign up for housing regardless, but then contact scholars specifically to get any sort of updates about that. Because there are a lot of questions about roommates, I just want to encourage you that our roommate period will be after the priority deadline of May 1st. It'll be specifically May 15th to June 15th. You'll be able to log into our system, identify a potential roommate, search for potential roommates during that specific period. You'll get a reminder about that. But I just want to make sure that I reemphasize, we will have a specific period for the roommate identification process after we get past that priority deadline. And that again runs from May 15th to June 15th. Okay. All right. So many questions here. This is fantastic. A lot of roommate questions. So yeah, definitely a lot of roommate questions. And thank you. I've got a colleague in here, Tracy, who's helping me answer questions directly in the chat. So if I haven't gotten to your question yet, you might scroll up and down the chat a little bit just to double check to see if maybe she's jumped in. Yes, so yeah, so Resident Life will honor mutual roommate requests as space allows. We have to first factor in making sure that for the specific individual programs that we're providing the spaces for the students who are in those particular programs. Okay. If you're declining an offer to a living learning program, you just need to contact that living learning program staff and work it out directly with them. So just make sure that you contact them. So whichever program it is, you can find their contact information online, contact them and let them know. Okay. Yeah, so honor students, we do have predetermined housing for honor students, such as the University Honors Program is in Hagerstown Hall. We have Honors Humanities on South Campus in Anne Arundel Hall. We have programs associated with honors that have pre-designated housing in different parts of the campus. So kind of like scholars being in the Cambridge community, we've got pre-designated housing for all of that. Yes, let's see. Scholar students would be required to live in the Cambridge community, participating in that program for their first year. Sophomores continuing in most of these programs have much more flexibility. It's really more for the first year of entering into a living learning program that we have predetermined housing. So just kind of keep that in the back of your minds for this piece. Let's see. What do the residence halls look like in terms of living space? Certainly, we have a variety of different options in our residence halls. We have traditional style, which would be the long hallways with bedrooms lining up and down the hallway, shared bathrooms, communal baths in the middle of the hallways on each side of the floor. We have semi-suites, which are 2 bedrooms with an adjoining bathroom in the back of those spaces and those units. We have suites, which would be multiple bedrooms with 1 or 2 bathrooms and a common space. Most of those are going to exist in the South Hill community. And then we have apartments, which are essentially like suites, of course, with kitchens. We have apartments available in the Leonardtown community, South Hill community, and in St. Mary's Hall, connected to our international program. So we have a lot of different options in terms of our housing, in terms of the types of spaces. We do have a few buildings that are non-air conditioned, but it's only a few. Certainly, you pay a little bit less in thinking about that differential rate structure. Most of our buildings air conditioned. We've been renovating buildings as we go for the past. Well, we've essentially consistently been working on renovating buildings. We're in the process right now of actually constructing 2 new buildings on campus, on the north side of campus. Those are, hopefully going to open up within the next few years. And that actually allows us a lot more flexibility even to continue doing more renovations as we move forward. So most of our rooms are doubles. Most of the bedrooms specifically are doubles. We do have a handful of triples and quads. We do have some singles. Singles usually get picked up by our returning students and our resident assistants. So don't plan on getting a single as a first-year student. That's highly unlikely. Most likely you'll end up in a double. If you want specific images, we do have 360 tours available on our website. If you go to reslife.umd.edu, there's a link in that main page for you to be able to take a look at what some of our living spaces look like. We've got some visual inventory to show you what spaces in different rooms look like. So check that out. Make sure that you take a look at all of the information online. Let's see. Students are assigned to halls in different ways. The Living Learning Program piece is a big piece. Looking at trying to match you up with the roommates, looking at the date that your application came in. Most of our first-year students are going to live on the north side of campus. We've got our high-rise residence halls in the Cambridge, Ellicott, and Denton communities on the north side of campus, so that's mostly first year. Our North Hill community, which is around where our McKeldin Mall is, where the McKeldin Library is. North Hill actually has a little over 50% of the students that live there are first-year students. So first-year students can technically live anywhere on campus, mostly concentrated on North Campus, and then secondly, North Hill. So the assignment of where you're going to get placed as a first-year student, we're going to try to place you with other first-year students in those general areas. Certainly, you can indicate if you have more of a preference for a suite or apartment style, and we'll look at what availability we have after we get past our room selection process with our returning students. But just know that you'll be able to you'll be able to live with other first-year students as an entering first-year student. Let's see. There is a question here which I can certainly refer to. A couple of years ago, it was a particularly hot and humid transition from summer into fall, and our residence halls sort of fell victim, like many other buildings, both at universities and otherwise, did in the along the East Coast, particularly in the DMV area. And we had mold in our residence halls. It was a challenge, definitely something that we had to tackle and work on. We did a number of things, both in a very quick response to get out there and assess the significance of the issue. We had moved people into temporary locations to make sure that we mitigated the problem, and then assessed what caused a lot of those issues and identified a lot of facilities projects to fix those various things. So we looked at air control systems, installed additional dehumidifier units across our residence halls, the ones that needed it in particular, and then looked at other things like roof repairs, window repairs, those types of things. We had a whole series of different projects that we did from the recommendations of an outside contractor, reviewer, and we were able to accomplish all of that before the start of this past academic year. So our students really saw virtually no issues across our residence halls going into this fall as opposed to the previous one. So we think we've done a great job in tackling that problem and ensuring that we won't run into that type of thing in the future. All right. See. So yeah, great question here. First-year students in living on campus. So we don't require first-year students to live on campus. 94% of them choose to live on campus. We do guarantee housing for first-year students if you meet that priority deadline of May 1st. If you miss the priority deadline, you will initially get moved to a wait list. And at that point, we'll have to kind of see how things play out in terms of housing. But as long as you meet that priority deadline, you have guaranteed housing as a first-year student. So make sure that you get that application in as soon as you can, and that will put you in line in order to get that on-campus placement. So after you apply through the online form, you should get a confirmation email. And then at that point, you can kind of take a step back for a little bit. We're going to send out the roommate process information when we get closer to May 15th to let you know that that process is starting. We do that process from May 15th to June 15th, collect any sort of updates or special requests from students up until around that time. And then we do our placement process going from the end of June and into July, with placements coming out roughly around the third week of July. That's when we start to release housing information, and you'll get notification when that happens. So right now, as long as you've gotten a confirmation email, if you submitted your agreement and for some reason didn't get a confirmation email, make sure that you contact our assignments office. You can reach them at reslife@umd.edu, reslife@umd.edu, or you can call 301-314-2100. So I'll post that in the chat towards the end and kind of let that linger for just a little bit, because we still have so many questions coming in. I have on my screen 99 plus new messages as I'm trying to scroll down through here. So yes, this is quite a session here. Thank you all for being here, for participating, for asking some great questions. All right. Let's see. Trying to make sure that I'm capturing things that I haven't necessarily responded to yet. Yeah, fire and biofire are different. Biofire is a live and learning program and has an on-campus living component attached to it. The fire program is a separate program. It's a research-based program. So just know that there's a little bit of a difference between those two. So, in terms of guaranteed living on campus, the question there. So we guarantee housing as long as you meet our deadline of May 1st. for our first year students. For our second year students, we have been able to bring back all second year students for the past couple of years that have said that they've wanted housing and follow the appropriate process and procedures. For rising juniors and seniors, we don't guarantee their ability to come back on campus. Our focus really is in those first 2 years, the impact that living on campus has on students. And a lot of our rising juniors and seniors are typically looking for a little bit more independent living by that time anyway. So we do have our off-campus housing services office to help support them as they're looking at their options around the College Park area. So first year, definitely yes. Second year, we continue to support our students living on campus. Third and fourth year, if space is available, then we'll kind of take a look at the numbers. We'll kind of see what we can do. But for the most part, our juniors and seniors will look at additional options, either in our capstone management properties, partners with us, or in the surrounding College Park area. All right. All right. Okay. So yeah, a lot of these questions are related to the roommate piece. So I'm trying to see if I can pick out anything else. I think I've tried to respond as best I can to all of those roommate related questions. Let's see. So again, you do not have to be committed to the University of Maryland in order to complete the housing form. As long as you've been admitted to the university, you do not have to, you can apply for on-campus housing. If you choose not to come to Maryland, that's okay. Then we'll cancel your housing application. If you choose to come to Maryland, then you've submitted your agreement, you're already in line, and you're really in a good place. So definitely. All right. Okay. I don't have an exact percentage for students in living learning programs versus none. General estimate is it's kind of a 50-50 setup, and we have some of our programs are rather large, particularly the College Park Scholars Program takes up most of the Cambridge community. And a program like University Honors takes up most of the Hagerstown Hall building. North Hill has a number of smaller programs scattered throughout their various buildings. So it's a good percentage of our residence halls are living learning program, but certainly there are a lot of spaces for both living learning program students as well as then non-living learning program students. It's not highly imbalanced one way or the other. Let's see. Looks like someone had a response to that math placement test question that it's online. I kind of figured it probably would be. So certainly orientation is continuing to get more information out there so that we can help you all get prepared for coming to campus. We don't have any building that is only first year student. Just to refer to this quick question here. There are certainly buildings that are mostly first year student buildings, mostly on North Campus, but we don't designate a building to only be first year students. There could be, for example, in the College Park Scholars Program, a handful of students who are moving into their second year might want to return back to the College Park Scholars community and live on the same floor with the first year students who are coming in, kind of serve in a little bit more of like a mentorship type of role alongside what RAs will do to support students on those floors. So just know that we don't have any specified first year student buildings, but there are certainly ones that are primarily first year. Okay. You do not have to use the Facebook page in order to, or Facebook or any social media to find roommates. We will have a roommate finder built into our housing portal, the StarRes system. You'll log into that again May 15th, be able to access that process and search for a roommate that way. Certainly, there are some who are going to choose to use social media to try to find somebody, class of 2024, Facebook and Twitter groups and things like that. That's your prerogative, certainly, but we do provide a system for you to search for other students who are planning to live on campus. Okay. Trying to scroll through here, see if I'm finding anything else. If my colleagues who are helping to moderate have any burning questions that I'm missing, please feel free to text them to me as I'm Still scrolling through. It's still on the bottom of my screen says 99 plus messages. Yeah, any questions related to orientation, I would certainly recommend that you contact the orientation office. They are available to you to answer any questions about any sort of fees or scheduling, access to their services, what have you. So make sure that you contact them as soon as you can. And I see Tracy actually added in here, orientation.umd.edu to get the answers to your questions. Okay. Still a lot of roommate-related questions. There's a question here, I think I've seen it a couple times in terms of housing based on academic program. So we don't have any housing based on specifically academic programs. So if you're a business school student, you're not expected to live in any particular place. If you're a physical science student, computer science student, journalism student, we don't have specific housing for those things exactly. The living learning programs are more co-curricular experiences that may or may not relate to your major. So it could be something that does enhance your major if the topics line up. In other cases, it doesn't. So if, for example, there's a question here for business school students, where do they typically live? That all kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you want to live close to the business school, the North Hill is going to be the area of campus that's closest to the Smith School. But if you're looking for closer access to the Clarice Performing Arts Center, you want to feel like you're closer to resources like the Epley Recreation Center, dining halls, like those types of things. So you might choose things not necessarily based on your major, or that you can't specifically identify a building necessarily, but you may not end up in housing locations based on your major. You'll get a bit put into housing locations based on living learning program participation, based on any sort of special needs or preferences that you have that you put into your application, and then matching up roommate information. Let's see. Trying to go through more here. Yeah, so it kind of continued in that. I see there's a question about journalism. There was a question about business. So yeah, not based on academic program. It's based on the other factors, the other pieces of the questions you're going to answer in the on-campus housing and dining agreement. Okay. Yeah, so there's a question here about arrangements made for students with respiratory problems in residence halls without the AC system, the central air or window units for AC. So in that case, you would submit as a need or preference that you have a respiratory situation or whatever the specific medical needs are. You submit that as part of the on-campus housing and dining agreement. And then you'll provide any supporting medical documentation to our assignments office, and they'll use that to then determine where your housing is going to be based. So if it's a respiratory problem and you need to be in a space that has that specific ventilation, air conditioning type of setup, then that information that you put in your application will help our assignments office support those needs. Okay. Let's see. So again, I don't have every individual sub-program for the living learning programs and which ones accept versus don't accept students both in and out of a program. My best recommendation for anyone who's asking about being in one scholars program versus another, or one Caroline community versus another, and can you have somebody in different programs or communities be roommates, you can put that information as your request. Just know that if your request isn't confirmed, it isn't accepted in the placement process, that our assignments office will end up having to go back to the questions of your application to try to find a match that it will appropriately meet the arrangement for the residence hall that you're going to be placed. So, just be aware of that. Okay. So many questions about roommates. I knew even in the presentation itself that roommates are always the biggest, or always one of, if not the biggest question. Okay. All right, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to make sure that I'm looking at the most updated stuff here. All right, so Tracy did post here at the bottom of the chat. Just one big thing to note is that the beginning of the release of housing assignments information will happen July 24th at noon. That's not 100% of notifications go out immediately. That is the start of when we're going to submit or send out that information to students. We do that over the course of a couple of weeks, trying to get, of course, most of the assignments out at the start. The biggest thing is that we're trying to do our best to make sure that not only have we guaranteed housing for all of our first-year students, we're doing our best to match them with their needs and preferences, as well as any sort of roommate matching that we need to work on as we go through the placement process. So July 24th is the start of when we send out all that information, and we go from there. Someone asked me how was my first year roommate. Mine was fantastic. We did not know each other ahead of time. We came from very kind of different backgrounds. He was in construction, had very different sleep schedule than I did. We were able to actually work it out very easily, just simply by talking to each other, getting to know each other. We talked a little bit in the summer, which I say is one of the best recommendations when it comes to roommates. Whether you know the person or not ahead of time, if you've identified somebody and you end up getting that roommate request accepted, or you find somebody in the search process, or you kind of let the application itself determine who your roommate is going to be, contact during the summer is one of the most significant things that you can do. Bare minimum, I would call, so that way you have a legitimate conversation. Texting and emailing is a little bit disconnected. Social media, kind of in the same way. I would try to call. If not, we're in this kind of interesting new world right now where video chatting is dominating the bandwidth. So certainly jump into Zoom, WebEx, Skype, whatever service is best for you, and connect with your potential roommate that way, or your identified roommate once we get to the assignments release. Contact them, and then certainly talk about getting to know each other, what you're bringing to campus, and all of those things. Okay. Okay, so a couple things. I do want to let you know, we are going, this session is recorded. We are going to be posting this to be available. I'm going to be sending this to the admissions office as well, so they'll have this available linked on their website. We'll make this session available for you to be able to go back and review. I know that I'm not necessarily getting to every question. We're not going to email the presentation out, but we are going to make sure that it's available online. So that's one thing. Follow us on social media and use that as another platform to contact us. Certainly, you can email our department at reslife@umd.edu. You can check out our website, reslife.umd.edu. You can call us at 301-314-2100, but you can also follow us on social media and connect with us that way. All of our accounts, you can search any social media, any of the major social media platforms, specifically Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, UMD Res Life. So at UMD Res Life for any of our social media. Okay, just want to make sure that I highlighted all of that. Okay, let's see. So beyond that, jump back to a few more questions here. Okay, so beds are pretty standard size. Extra large sheets will fit nicely. I think Tracy was responding to that question at some point. Thank you, Tracy. Let's see. You can cancel your housing and dining agreement before you receive your placement on campus. Certainly, there's just the $25 application fee if you already confirmed with the university and submitted your application. That part's non-refundable, but the rest of it, you don't get charged for living on campus until we've actually made a placement. So just kind of know that. See, Wi-Fi in the buildings is actually pretty good. Certainly can get bogged down. We've got over 40,000 people in the College Park community and the University of Maryland community that can be on campus at any given time. Guests that come to campus at any time, but we have a very strong Wi-Fi available throughout the buildings, so that's good. There's a question in here about refrigerators. We actually have a rental service for refrigerators, a partner that we work with for carpet rentals, if you'd like to get one of those before you move on campus, and a bed lofting service that we work with, bedloft.com. As you're planning to come to campus, if you want to loft your bed, which is essentially having it raised off the ground significantly higher so that you can store more underneath of it. And when I say significant, you use the end of the bed as a ladder to get into it, almost kind of bunk bed-esque, with the bottom part being more open. We have a company that we work with. You can reserve any of those things ahead of time, and we'll send out more information about that when we get into the summer, and we've sent out information about your assignments and go from there. There is a hardwire Ethernet data jack available as well in the rooms. Essentially, every room is going to come with a bed, dresser, desk chair, closet space for each student, data connection, both hardwire and then generally for the building Wi-Fi, and a cable connection. In some rooms, going back to the moisture control, the mold-related issue that we dealt with in the past, there are some rooms that are going to have dehumidifier units built in. Certainly those need to stay connected because that helps manage the airflow of the room. So just make sure that as you're moving things around, you're not blocking those units, and certainly as you're customizing your space. Most of the rooms are going to be set up in a semi-hotel style when you first move in, just in terms of arranging the furniture. You do have the ability to move things around as you choose to. Okay. I think one of the great questions, because this is obviously a question for all of us right now, is when do things reopen? We are moving forward. We are planning for our students to be on campus this fall, which is why we're definitely still pushing. Apply for housing, get your application in. We're continuing our process as normal. We are going to have to be flexible and adjust on the spot as we need to, as we continue to track how the COVID-19 situation continues to progress, how getting things under control, and all of those different elements. So we will be in touch with all of our prospective students, all of our incoming students, all of our returning students, to make sure that they have updates from us about where things are at. We kind of have to remain flexible and malleable as we move forward. So certainly it is not lost on us, the situation that is happening. One of the reasons why we're doing this as a web Q&A versus being in person at one of our open houses, the last one would have normally been taking place today. We are being flexible and malleable as we go. Yes. Again, BioFire versus Fire are kind of two different entities in terms of the housing situation. So BioFire has a living learning program and space specifically within residence halls. Fire does not. So that's kind of one of those situations where the two students in those two different programs are going to have are going to be set up differently. Okay. Yeah, so the $25 fee in terms of the housing application, so that doesn't get assessed again until after you've confirmed your housing or confirmed your application submitted and you've confirmed that you're coming to the university. At that point is when a student account is created. So it'll get billed to your student account, and then you would process that with our bursar's office, which you'll be able to do that online, or when we're back on campus, you'll be able to do that directly at the bursar's office. So kind of whichever process it makes sense to you. So it'll be billed to your student account. You process that online or at the bursar's office directly. Okay. The bathroom situation is different depending on the individual building. Traditional style buildings, the long hallways with bedrooms lining the hallway, those are communal style. We have housekeeping staff that maintain those, manage those throughout the day, throughout the week. In the suites, the semi-suites, and the apartment style housing options, all of those, you're going to be responsible for maintaining that space because that's internal to the living space rather than being connected directly into the general hallway for the building. So depends on this in the structure of the housing you're in. Traditional communal bathrooms maintained by our housekeeping staff. In semi-suites, suites, and apartments, private bathrooms, which you will take care of throughout your time living in those spaces. I see there's a question in here about single gender in our building. So the only single gender building that we have is Cecil Hall, which is an all-female building. Otherwise, in the rest of the residence halls, we have the way that the buildings are structured, the way that the floors are structured. It's typically that a wing is going to be single gender. So one side of the floor will be male, the other side will be female. Some of that is going to be dependent, particularly in living learning program situations, what the makeup of that program is. If the program skews heavily into one gender, then we might have to make adjustments in terms of the floor structure. For example, in College Park Scholars, let's say, for example, Science Discovering the Universe has 2 floors and their program is 75% male, then there will be an all-male floor, and the other floor would be kind of a half and half situation. So we have to adjust with that depending on the makeup of the students who are entering into the program. But typically it's going to be each wing, each side of the floor is going to be single gender. Okay. When will you know when your housing is assigned? That will start happening again on July 24th. That's when at noon we'll start to send out those messages to students to let them know where they are. And you'll get that information. When you log in, you'll see your room information, you'll see your roommate information. You'll be able to start that connection and start really developing kind of your plan for coming to campus for the fall. Okay. All right. We're kind of reaching the end of our time here. We're almost at noon. Just making sure that I'm not missing anything else. Please, please, please make sure that one, you keep that. If there's anything you take away from this Q&A, if there's absolutely anything, May 1st is the priority deadline to apply for housing. If you haven't done it yet, you're still trying to figure out whether or not Maryland is the right school for you, if you're still trying to figure out your situation of whether or not you live on campus or not, submit anyway. At bare minimum, you'll have at least gotten your place in line, and then you can kind of figure out things from there. So that's the biggest takeaway. If you can take away anything from this presentation, from this Q&A, May 1st priority deadline, get that application in. When you're filling out the application, you will have a way to indicate any sort of special needs or considerations that you have. The assignment consideration form is one that you will end up filling out, providing that medical information or that verifying information to let us know the specifics behind the request that you have, and we'll use that to be able to manage the placement process when we get there. So keep those things in mind. The basic timeline, May 1st, priority deadline for submitting your agreement. May 15th to June 15th will be the roommate process, where you'll be able to go online, identify somebody as a potential roommate, keep those factors in mind about you and the potential roommate or roommates being in the same program. There are some programs with restrictions and some that do not have those restrictions. Certainly contact those individual programs if you need to. If you contact us with the assignments office as well, we can verify for that for you, give you the updates that you need. And then from there, finally, we'll get to actually submitting or sending out the official information about which housing location you're going to be in, which building, what room, your roommate information, all of that starting July 24th. So May 1st is that most important date for you to keep in mind right now, and we'll go from there. All right. Okay. We are at 12 o'clock. Again, thank you all for tuning in today. I am overwhelmed by the number of you all that jumped into the session. This is fantastic. I appreciate you being here. this recording is going to be available. You're going to be able to contact us if you need to at reslife@umd.edu, 301-314-2100 in terms of our phone number. And check out our website, reslife.umd.edu. Check out our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll have additional updates that go through all of those various channels to help you out, help answer your questions. And again, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.